Hi, and welcome to my personal list of the top best games of all time. Number 5, Your Mom. Haha, got him. Number 4, CoolMathGames.com. Number 3, fantasy kicks ass, and sometimes doesn't. Magic and dragons, racism, like the oppressions of elves, goblins, and trolls in various media, and also like how their real-world biases find their way into fiction, kind of like Tolkien's orcs. But also hot goth GFs and multi-classing and the corruption of the state and the people in power are too stupid to do anything meaningful for change, or too clever or powerful to actually be forced to change. This All Props, that's short for probably, This All Props sounds like Game of Thrones, but before the show came out, there was an ARPG romp across a distant yet familiar world called Thedas in the now iconic Dragon Age Origins. 2009 sucked. Michael Jackson died, which no matter how you feel about MJ, that was a cultural shift. I remember the day MJ died more than fucking 9/11. There was also the swine flu, which feels more like a dream than a memory, but more importantly, the Ballad of Gay Tony came out. Oh, and so did Dragon Age. BioWare had been around for a long time, mostly kicking shit in other IP, that's short for intellectual properties by the way, like Dungeons & Dragons and Star Wars. They had some success, or at least I thought they had some success, because I played all their games as a kid. My dear old dad had Neverwinter Nights on his PC, my BFF had the OG Xbox with KOTOR 1 and 2, and we eventually got Mass Effect. BioWare was almost God to me and my gamer friends. Like, there was nothing they couldn't do, and that only like solidified whenever Dragon Age came out. I love fantasy. I love fantasy more than science fiction, like so much more. I always preferred Warcraft over StarCraft, and Diablo tops both of them bitches. And role-playing was something I enjoyed, but I didn't have anything to sink my teeth into. Or maybe I just didn't like role-playing before DAO, that's short for Dragon Age. Or maybe a combination of both. Or maybe because I was a literal fucking child trying to play these adult games. Like, why was I doing that to myself? What I do know is that very few games got lodged so firmly into my brain as DAO did. It became one of the council members for games that were most permanently etched into my psyche. Ocarina of Time, Age of Empires 2, Fallout 2, all 3 Donkey Kong countries, and I mean all 3 of them because they're all fucking baller, and I will not hear otherwise. They're all perfect to my young mind. Dragon Age just happened to be more real and intense than those other games, or at least that's how I felt about it. It seemed like Dragon Age really wanted you to engage with it seriously, at least sometimes. The thing I really enjoyed about it was the game felt like an adventure. You travel across the whole world, though arguably a tad too much by the late game, I'll be honest, and meet these incredible people, do some crazy shit. It's kind of like Zelda, and Zelda is my ideal adventure. Most of those games are sick as fuck, and fun, and replayable because they keep things simple. You explore the world, find the dungeon, find the special item, kill the boss, explore the world ad infinitum. Some things never change with adventure games. Elden Ring can be described the exact same way. This will make the video dated. Thanks, Zane. This can absolutely be said for DAO as well. The limited scope of the game actually really helps that too. The main quest even sees you traveling through the forest, the mountains, and a city courtyard, almost exactly like Ocarina of Time. Coincidence? It was also nice being given the freedom of interactivity with the lore in the world, where you could dive right on the deep end or just scrape by with only need-to-know information. And choosing to engage, I always got the sense that you, the player, were really experiencing Thedas vicariously through the player character. Building the codex by fighting new enemies, finding new places, or talking to literally anybody will give you info which helps your PC, that's short for player character, helps your PC and helps you fill in the blanks of this world. I felt like I began to understand the world better by playing a completionist playthrough, which is not my favorite way to play the game, but I do really like to come back every now and then and delve into the lore and relearn all the secrets that I may have forgotten about Thedas. Dragon Age was the first of BioWare's own IPs. Let me double check that. That's false. I like Dragon Age. I hope that's the point that I'm getting across. This is something that has taken a lot of time for me. You know, I always wind up replaying the game like every 2 years or something like that. And every single playthrough is like at least tens of hours of long, you know, so I'm into this shit. And the following like review, retrospective, like, I don't know what this is, but like, come with me, you know, I'll walk you through all my core memories with Dao. I'll tell you all about why I like it. A good opening can sell a whole game, and a main menu really helps too. Dao has both, at least in my opinion. The EA logo turned into a dragon, okay? And it fucking flies at you and shit. That's something I've never seen before. You know, there's always those games that have interactive logos at the beginning of their games and stuff. It's just cool to me, you know, like, oh, you think you're getting the EA logo? Haha, psych, there's a dragon. The main menu also starts out with Liliana's song, and looking up the credits for the singer, I found that one of the QA testers is named David Lynch. Who knew that Mr. Twin Peaks himself enjoyed playtesting video games? Aubrey Ashburn, the vocalist for a few of the tunes in the game, gives this incredible, haunting performance, and with the big-ass sword stuck in the ground and the deserted battlefield, it makes the main menu feel very captivating, very empty and dead. Not very friendly, not very welcoming. It's captivating in its own way. And it really sets a tone of, hey, there's no fucking around. Okay, maybe a little bit of fucking around, that's a treat. The opening cutscene also gives us the hero of the story, Duncan, the D-ster, D-Money, D-Nasty, Sunny D. Thetis runs on Duncan. He's kind of the resident badass of the game, and he's really the person that I wanted my character to be when I first played. He spits some lore, shows you the state of things in the world, and then you can start creating your little home skillet. There's surprisingly a lot of variety in the creation screen. You can't make like an Oblivion. Oh my fucking god, how's the first time that I'm referencing Oblivion? That should have been with the games that destroyed my psyche. You can't make an Oblivion style like monster or hit the random button over and over like you can in Dark Souls, but you can make a legitimate individual in the world of Thetis. The classes are the classics: the fighter, the mage, and the rogue. The classes in Dao start fairly normally and can be fine-tuned over the entire course of the game. You can also multi-spec later on, which I think is like after level 7 or something. The races available are also the classics in the human, elf, and dwarf. And another thing you get to choose is your backstory and which of the 6 different openings you'll get. The human fighter/rogue will start in privilege as the human noble. The elf fighter/rogue can choose between the oppressed city elf or the nearly extinct Dalish elf. Elves kind of got fucked over by the humans. The elves had a long culture and customs dedicated to preserving knowledge and respecting the earth. And then humans came along and enslaved the elves, nearly destroying them completely. Elves eventually earned their quote-unquote freedom by revolting and breaking free of their bonds, the Dalish going back to being nomadic and trying to live in the old ways, while the city elves got a section of the city of Dinnerum for themselves called the Alienage. But it's like a segregated, horrible little plot of squalor and inequity. The dwarf character has the option of noble or non-noble. The dwarves operate much more closely to the political power players like Machiavelli and have a caste system guided by the stones of the ancestor. Meaning there's very little an individual dwarf can do to change things for themselves or for their race as a whole, unless you happen to be a paragon, the arbiters of the will of the stone. The caste system allows for power not to leave the hand of a select few families. Kind of like The Godfather, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, you know, that was a joke that I was trying to make and put in the video, but the more that I think about it, I think that's accurate. It definitely feels more like The Godfather Part 1 than anything else. So the choice between noble or non-noble for the dwarves is essentially just the choice between the upper echelon of society, the ones with all the power, or you are like the bottom of the societal ladder. And finally, the human and the elf have the option of the mage class. Dwarves canonically don't fuck with magic as they mine and subsequently have evolved a resistance to lyrium, the catalyst for all the magic powers. The mages live in a gilded cage set up by the Chantry, which is like Catholicism but for gamers, called the Circle of Magi. They are allowed to live and learn in the tower, however they are under the constant and ever oppressive supervision of the Templars, ACAB, professional mage hunters hired and trained by the Chantry to keep the mages in line. Starting up the game triggered the cutscene to set up the tone and atmosphere for whomever you've chosen to play. Each class and backstory offers a great deal of lore, and my personal favorite race/class combo is the Elf Battle Mage. Lore-wise, the only way to be a Battle Mage is to have the ancient knowledge. Oh, fuck. I just smacked the shit out of my mic. Lore-wise, the only way to be a battle mage is to A, be an elf, and to have the ancient knowledge, and I mean like time long forgotten by everybody kind of ancient knowledge passed down by the elves of old. Elves, and yes, I'm going to be talking about the elves a lot in this motherfucker. It's my video essay, and Mom said I can do what I want. The elves have harnessed the power of magic to help increase their physical prowess. The ancient elves, however, taught all their knowledge directly to other elves, not leaving much to writing, or at least we don't find much writing dating back to the time of the ancient elves. Maybe it's because they didn't write things down on top of the domination by a regime dedicated to eradicating them and their knowledge, but who can say really? The only way to find the Battle Mage subclass is to travel deep into the Brazilian forest for part of the main quest to help the closest Dalish tribe, and there, tucked away in a quiet corner in one of the dilapidated ruins, is a gemstone possessed with the spirit of the last elven Battle Mage. Stuck for so long, they no longer have an identity that they can remember. They just feel like being released and allowed to sleep the long nap. The spirit asks you to release it, allowing it to die, and offers this power if you decide to help. This type of world building and how the lore can be mechanically implemented. This type of world building and how the lore can be mechanically implemented is just so pleasing to experience. And there are a few moments like this with every combination of class and race, but really it just feels like a deliberate attempt to intricately lace gameplay with game story. This shit is dope. Anyway, each background acts as a tutorial before the story properly opens up. The 4 locales are important and are explored later in the game, except for the human noble's castle of Highever, so maybe it's just like the 3 places are really important. Anyway, the city elf starts in the alienage in the dinner room. In the dinner room? Why did I write that? The city elf starts in the alienage in Denerim, the Dalish in the Brazilian forest with their own tribe, the castle dwarf starts in the slums of Orzammar, the dwarf stronghold, while the dwarf noble starts in the highest section of the city called the Diamond District, and the mages start in the tower, Obvi. They call it the circle, but it's really like just a giant cylinder. Highever is only mentioned after the opening and isn't really a place that you can explore after the tutorial. Each background is meant to teach you the basics and to give you a piece of the puzzle of the story. Characters mentioned will come back, like Arl Howe, or King Balin, or Prince Balin and Harrowmont, the 2 dwarf wannabe kings, or the various mages in the tower, like Wynn will come back, and it just seems to me like BioWare really tried to utilize every aspect of the game and not let much go to waste. Even merchants are giving the same consideration, and companions often interact with each other to form this living, breathing world. Like, damn, it really is a small world when your character, the dwarf noble, and Oghren, another dwarf companion, meet Gorum, the BFF to your dwarf noble, voiced by the same actor as Oghren. That feels intentional, making the world that small. It's a very weird and funny interaction to have, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know, dude, it's just like definitely a sick design choice to include the various NPCs and connecting the world together. The prologue or whatever is meant to put characters where they need to be to start the game off. More specifically, it needs Duncan to be in every main area and have your character meet him. Like, you need to meet him to continue the story. Duncan works for an order of people dedicated to stopping the Darkspawn, these little fucking orc creatures that hail from the deepest depths of the mountains that the dwarves call home. The lore says Darkspawn originally were birthed. Why did I choose that word? I'm gonna pick a more normal word. The lore says Darkspawn were originally created when mages found the seat of power for this world's god, the Maker. The Maker was super pissed that these kids were like stepping on his lawn, so he forever cursed them to cause blights on the mortal world. These blights include making more Darkspawn, waking up dragon gods called archdemons, and killing as much of everything as possible. Duncan's order, the Grey Wardens, are the only people qualified to end blights, and you will eventually be a part of that order. Spoiler alert for a 13-year-old game. So Duncan is traveling the world looking for recruits for the Grey Wardens. That's why he's in every background to some degree. And each background gets to the same conclusion in their own ways. Like, you are conscripted into the Wardens and whisked off to the battle camp of King Kalen and his allies. You see, Duncan thinks there's another blight on the way, and Kalen is inclined to believe him. However, Kalen's right hand and father-in-law, Logain, does not think that. He actually actively calls Kalen's fantasy a child's fantasy. The camp, located at the old fort of Ostagar, acts as the second prologue, the more story-related one than the gameplay-related one. To begin your journey, you'll need to be properly inducted into the Wardens, requiring vials of Darkspawn blood. You will drink the blood and be forever linked to them, sensing them when they're near, and hearing the Dragon God speaking orders to the Horde. Duncan also really wants you to meet the other Warden, Alistair, who becomes your companion, and maybe even your friend, and to find some long-signed treaties that require aid in times of blight from the various civilizations and thetas. On Alistair, I think he's fine. He's got his moments where he's silly in a way that I find endearing. Mostly his constant quips are a cry for attention at best and annoying at worst. You know, I find him more compelling when he lets his guard down and stops hiding behind the jokes. Also whenever he just, is only there to tank damage, because he does that for you. But he's also a narc and a goody two-shoes. Oh, he's also the next in line for the throne after Kalen, since they are half-brothers. Anyway, you two get the vials of blood, have a sad ceremony where a couple of prop NCs get got, and then off you go to aid in the battle. You and Alistair have to light the signal, letting Logain know when to charge in and reinforce the field, helping the front lines led by Kalen. Apparently I've been spelling his fucking name wrong. And Duncan. You and Alistair do what needs to be done, you get fucked up in the process, but Logain retreat at the last minute, allowing Kalen and D Nasty to die on the field, rip to a real one, and really letting the blight begin in earnest. You wake up naked in the home of Flemeth and her daughter Morgan, whom you met both of them while out gathering Darkspawn blood. Darkspawn blood? You wake up naked in the home of Flemeth and her daughter Morgan, whom you met while gathering Darkspawn blood and the treaties. Flemeth is a very, very old and very powerful apostate witch that has saved your life and the Warden Order because, oh yeah, it's just you and Alistair now. You have no one else to help you. And now you have to deal with two different kinds of wars at the same time, the Civil and the Darkspawn. Flemeth suggests using the treaties to build up your army and sends Morgan off to help you in your journey. Morgan is the second main companion, and she's a pragmatic, blunt, goth GF type beat. She's a mage like her mother, and she is not one of my main homies. I do not care for Morgan. We disagree philosophically where her view is more of a selfish pragmatism and mine being altruistic. I like playing characters that want to help people whenever possible without the necessity for laws, while Morgan cares for neither. It's crazy that I can feel such a disagreement with a fictitious person. Like, damn, you are not fucking real. Stop arguing with me. Morgan is also still the most interesting character in the entire series though. That's a fucking fact. But Morgan and Alistair are total opposites as well. Bickering back and forth like children while you're running around clearing zones, doing quests. All the companions speak to each other, about themselves or about your PC, adding this to the sense that these people are actually thinking and engaging with the world outside of your influence. You know, I cannot overstate just how much I enjoy the writing and the VA, that's short for voice acting, and just the tiny little characterizations of everyone in the party. Like, they all have their interests, they all have their likes, and every decision that you make can affect their attitude towards you. From Flemeth's hut, you're free to do whatever in whatever order you want, although you're limited in experience, supplies, and the companions can give you their opinion on what to do next. But you don't have to listen to them. You can tell them to fuck off and run into the Darkspawn Horde if you really, really wanted. Lothering, the town outside of Flemeth's hut, is a good first pit stop, but you really have the freedom to go wherever. The main quest follows you gathering your allies and starting your quest to end the Blight. The Warden treaties call for aid from the Dalish Elves, the Mages, and the Dwarves, but depending on the outcome of each faction's related quest, you could have the Golems instead of Dwarves, Werewolves instead of Elves, and Templars instead of Mages. You also find companions scattered throughout the world, giving you the chance to change up your game and find which party members directly benefit your playstyle and class. Sten and Liliana are found in Lothering, both being two of my favorite friends. Sten is a no bullshit Kunari fighter, a fascinating subculture in Dao, and Liliana is a reformed rogue cosplaying the Chantry sister. Sten tanks, and he deals wonderful damage. He's dry, he's very literal, he follows orders because that's just how his society is. And Liliana, the god-fearing, bow-shooting, poison-making, pick-locking, song-singing rapscallion. Wynn can be found in the Mage's Tower. She's a little bit older, she's more of a teacher and like a spirit healer, able to keep the party going, but not so hot on damage output at all. She's the camp grandma, essentially giving out unsolicited sage advice and just straight vibing. Ogren's found in Orzammar. He's a warrior caught up in self-pity and the bottom of whatever ale he has in front of him. He actually kind of sucks. Like, I don't really think there's a lot of nuance to him. He's just a dwarf character. He is as he appears to be. Zevran is another foreigner, this time Antivan, and an assassin sent to kill you by low game. You beat him up, steal his lunch money, and then you have the option of sparing him or letting him also take the long nap. I personally like Zevran. I actually really enjoy his character, and it also helps to have as many of these people as possible for the last fight in the game, so I keep him alive. Zevran is suave, has a taste for the finer things in life, and doesn't get hung up on labels and things like whether or not he completed a contract, or when his employers, a host of assassins called the Antivan Crows, will come after him after he may or may not have completed said contract. Zevran is also incredibly horny. Like, each character has their own flavor of sexuality to them, like their own kind of confidence and, all that shit. But Zevran, it's very obvious that he's interested in anything that will give him the time of day. Shale is found in a village to the southwest called Honleith. Shale is a golem, a dwarf whose soul was fused with stone, and is one of the goofiest party members in my opinion. It does incredible damage and can take a lot of abuse, and has this wonderfully devilish sense of dry humor. Shale's also caustic as fuck and is often at odds with my PC. It's got its own sense of pragmatism, mostly gesturing at violence against humans for their injustice to it specifically. Shale was found by a mage, so the mage studied it, made it a pet, paraded it around, and kind of was not cool to Shale. That and all the pigeons that flew above and shat on Shale made it grow a fondness for crushing birds and man alike. This friction with mages becomes even more apparent when your PC is a mage, allowing for some pretty fun dialogue. The last companion is the dog. Dog is found from walking from Flemeth's hut or by being privileged as the human noble. Dog is literally just a dog. That's it. That's all it is. I never understood the density of this game until the pandemic, when I figured it was time to replay it, but with the intent to get all the achievements. This would include all of the DLC, which I have never fucking played before. And getting all of the romances, which means talking to everybody all the time and making sure they're all cool and stuff. I also spent a lot of time, a great deal of time, reading the codex. Everything that I could do to enhance my gameplay experience, I tried to do it. And it sucked, I'm not gonna lie, it sucked trying to get all the achievements, but I felt really rewarded by the game for engaging with it so deeply and with arms wide open. I'm very glad that I tried to do a completionist run, but like I said, it's not my favorite way to do it. And tried because I couldn't commit hard enough to get the rest of those damn achievements. But I still feel like I could always go back and jump into it at any time. I think that's the biggest appeal for me. The game is just satisfying and really easy for me to just come back to every once in a while. It's obviously not the best, obviously not the brightest, obviously not the greatest thing ever to be released, but it just scratches an itch for me. And it was surprising to come back to DAO and seeing a lot of this content for the first time. Return to Ostagar may be one of my favorite pieces of additional content ever made. This also may have given me an even greater appreciation for DAO in general, seeing the amount of continued effort in the DLCs. I had enjoyed the game when it came out as a preteen, and the love only deepened with the DLCs and with time. It's not a 10/10 though by any fucking means, not by a long shot. There are things that I don't really like about the game. I mostly want to talk about the things that I enjoy, but there are a few things. It wasn't until I got the laptop version where I saw that a lot of the jank was just because I was playing it on Xbox for most of my life. Glitches happened less frequently. bugs I had assumed everyone dealt with were completely absent, it was fucking great. And also quick saving saved my ass on all of the higher difficulties. After Lothering, the game really opened itself up, especially if you have the DLCs, meaning once you have some gold, some homies, and a place to camp, you are ready to fucking go exploring. The main quest is simple. Gather your allies, stop the civil war, kill the archdemon, yada yada. But the game is lenient with what order you choose to do things, meaning that enemies will scale to your PC, allowing for real exploration of zones you would have otherwise thought were too hard. And each zone had a quest corresponding with the faction that lives there. The Brazilian Forest has the Dalish, the Frostback Mountains have the Dwarves, Lake Calenhead has the Circle and the Mages. Denerim, which is mostly inaccessible, is where Loghain sits waiting for you to bust down the doors. And all of these places hold a board of miscellaneous side stuff the player can ignore or interact with to get some extra lore and gold. The Chantry board, as it's called, is like one of 4 ongoing side hustles along with the Mages Collective, the Blackstone Irregulars, and some favors for certain interested parties, quote unquote. Each companion also has their own specific mission that can only be activated once they like you enough. They're different, they add a lot of variety to the game, and if you keep making the companions like you, they'll earn passive stat bonuses until their attitude about you gets lowered. Or you could fuck them. Anyway, reaching Orzammar, the dwarves need a king, and the king can only be decided by a living paragon, and there just so happens to be one in the Deep Roads. The Deep Roads are roads in the depths of the mountain. They used to connect all the old cities together back before like 95% of the Dwarven Kingdom was overrun by Darkspawn, which you will fight through all of them to get to the said living paragon. The catch, however, once you get there is that there are 2 living paragons. Caridin, the master of the Anvil of the Void, and Branka, Ogren's ex-wife, who went in search specifically of the Anvil. The Anvil is a powerful artifact that makes golems. The price, however, is 1 dwarf for 1 golem, killing the dwarf in the process. In ancient times, dwarves volunteered, but then the king began ordering more golems for no real good reason besides just to have them. Caridin was like, nah fam, and he locked himself away to never make another golem again. And Branka went looking for the Anvil to help defend Orzammar and make more golems, keeping the dwarven race alive, giving them more time against the Darkspawn. Shale and Ogren have some great characterization here. Shale is more interesting to me than Ogren. Fuck you, Ogren. Because Shale is a dwarf volunteered to be made into a golem, and Caridin remembers it, telling it some of its background. Ogren just mopes that his wife sucks and that we have to kill her. Fuck you, Branka. There's no way to come to a sensible agreement. It's either the Anvil be destroyed, or you be destroyed, allegedly. The Dalish need help killing off some pretty pesky werewolves that keep fucking them up. The werewolves are sapient, and they only really want to break the curse that made them so. The catch here is that the leader of the Dalish elves was the one to curse these poor creatures, who used to be humans, and they did horrible shit to the Dalish once upon a time. The leaders of both parties can come to a sensible agreement, but only if you pick the correct dialogue option, which is way more specific than any other conversation in the game for some reason. Otherwise, you have to pick a side. Vengeance or redemption. The Mage's Tower is overrun by demons, and the Templars want to burn the circle to the ground. You see, mages are really susceptible to demonic possession. Having magical powers means you have a strong connection to the Fade, the world of demons and of dreams. Demons really like bargaining with mages while they sleep. It's the easiest way for them to do so, and they also generally offer great power in the form of blood magic. Magic performed with blood instead of lyrium, which is a huge no-no for the Chantry and their police force, ACAB. So when demons start showing up, the Templars shit their pants and want to do the sacred rite called annulment, meaning they would rather kill all of the mages instead of risk more demons and blood mages. But regular old sorcerers and scholars are still alive in the tower and have the ability to save that bitch, including Wynn. The Mage's Quest is usually the first one that I do, just to get it out of the way, because I like having Wynn early. I also cannot fucking stand the quest for the Mage's Tower. It involves going into the Fade and jumping from different islands and unlocking different shape-shifting abilities to get further into each one of those different islands, meaning a lot of backtracking in a small amount of time. The islands each had their own mini-bosses, which is how you typically get shape-shifting abilities. But killing each mini-boss unlocks the island in the very center of this big map, which houses the head honcho of this particular corner of the Fade. You cannot leave the Fade until every island is completed, and you kill the head demons in charge. And then after all that, you have to keep fighting through the circle to get to the actual boss of that area, to kill the blood mage that started this whole thing. This is one of the few really frustrating experiences every time for me. One of the only parts that I will actively dislike. The choice here at the top of the tower though, at the end of all of that, is fanaticism or humanity. Will you kill the mages and wipe the whole slate clean, starting all of it over? Or are you going to save the circle? Are you going to save these people? Redcliffe is the other spot that you go to, rounding out the first half of the game. Redcliffe is home to Arl Eamon, Alistair's uncle or whatever, and is the only other person powerful enough to call Loghain out. Eamon was poisoned and is comatose, and his son, who started showing signs of magic, made a deal with a demon. This unleashed the undead onto the town, and with Eamon down for the count, the undead overran the castle and the town. Saving the town isn't hard. Kill some zombies, make your way up to the castle, and help get this demon entity out of the boy, which can be done by either killing the child or by going to get help from the circle, which you may have just already helped out. Either way, the undead won't come back, and this gives you the time to find a cure for Arl Eamon, the Ashes of Andraste. Andraste was the Maker's chosen waifu whom got burnt alive for some reason, and her ashes are said to heal whatever malady or some bullshit, but nobody has seen the ashes since she actually died. It's been 2,000 years, let your martyrs go. Getting the ashes is an experience, and it sheds light on a lot of the religion and a lot of the spirituality of Thedas. It's also just one of my favorite quests for no other reason than I like the area that you're in. I like what you're doing. It's fairly easy to get through. There's also something really interesting to be said about the implications of having found the resting place of one of the few actually blessed individuals in the entire series. Andraste's lore is pretty fucking cool. There's also one of the only real dragons in the whole game. But getting the ashes and healing Eamon will start the second half of the game, revolving around getting help from the nobles to stop Loghain and then to subsequently destroy the Darkspawn Horde. Denerim is home to the seat of power for Thedas. Nora, Loghain's daughter, is like the watered down version of Queen, while Loghain has become the regent and the actual decision maker. I put off talking about Loghain because I don't know, but now the time has come and I have a lot to say about him. He's fine. Denerim has a market. You can buy things, or even not do that. It's also here where Eamon tells you his plan for taking down Loghain. He wants to use Alistair's right to the throne through blood, and then rally the people together behind Alistair to save the city. I usually get to this point, and then start completing all the side quests, and with my recent purchases of DAO DLC, which is fairly cheap by the way, I recommend it, I started working my way through all this quote-unquote new stuff. The side content is some of my favorite, like Warden's Keep and Shale, and because of the loot that was added. But the best DLC, like I said before, is Return to Ostagar. That shit is super rewarding. Lore and loot in abundance, my friends. Return to Ostagar is the return to the Dead Valley where Duncan and Kaelin gave their lives to try and stop the Darkspawn. Here you can collect some of the best loot in the game. You give Kaelin a proper burial, and you get to lay the WWE smackdown on the ogre that killed D Nasty, which subsequently drops Duncan's sword. It's catharsis in multiple ways for you and your party. Wynn and Alistair really begged to come back with you to Ostagar, and there's a lot of good moments with the two of them leaning onto each other in their grief. The other catharsis is revenge for Duncan and getting that sweet fucking sword. In Ostagar, you can collect Kaelin's armor as well, worn now by the Darkspawn generals. I really like levels in games that offer a different perspective on beginning areas. Like in Dead Space 2, when you go back through the Ishimoria, that shit was fucking cool. So going through Ostagar and seeing the damage done and the lives lost was really impactful for me when I first stepped back into the snowy fort. And Kaelin himself is an interesting individual. He was always portrayed as being held to the same standard as his father, and that he was never given more characterization than that. But he was so brave fighting the Darkspawn though, and he also had his own fucking cool sword. Return to Oscar allows for some lore to Caitlyn that you learn from secondhand document and through dialogue with your party members. The sadness in Alistair is palpable and feels entirely real to me. Shout out to Steve Valentine for the VA. It is the scene from the main menu, the lost battle and the dead fields that sprawl until the blood and bodies are piled so high you can't even see the horizon. It's like confirmation that the nightmare has been real. Some other notable inclusions to DAO was Darkspawn Chronicles, which was a one-off campaign where you are the Darkspawn attacking Denerim. It's fine. It's like 30 minutes of you just smashing on all your party members from the original game. Like 5.5 out of 10 for me. Morgan has her own DLC called The Witch Hunt, and it's also a great piece of lore and story. 7 out of 10. 7.5 out of 10. Then there's the fucking Ileana Song, which is the playable version of Ileana's backstory. That's a 6 out of 10. The Golems of Amgarak is a Amgarak? The Golems of Amgarak is a dungeon crawl with one of the hardest bosses in the whole game for me. 6.5 out of 10. And finally, there's Awakening, a new campaign set after the event of the main game, taking place in the newly acquired Warden base of operations. It sees you pitted against Darkspawn that talk, which, spoiler alert, is a huge bummer. And also, you fight the creature that created them, the Mother. It also offers new companions, with the exception of Oghren, who for some reason is the only companion to make a return for Awakening, which is crazy to me because Oghren was not a good companion in the first game, like besides being a really good fighter. So like whenever he showed up and you got to spend like the whole game like chatting to him, I realized they changed his character. They made him much more enjoyable and less of a caricature and more of Oghren. They kind of dialed in who he was supposed to be, I guess, which is cool. But also, Awakening offers hours of fresh content, even though they still utilize the same assets, making the said freshness of the said content very relative. 8.78 out of 10. Anyway, after you're done fucking around, the endgame sees you calling Loghain a fuckboy, stealing the throne for Alistair, and defending Denerim from the unspeakable horrors of Darkspawn occupation. A secret third Grey Warden that's been locked up for the whole game essentially, Deus Ex Machinas the Archdemon, rending its wing and landlocking it on the Tower of Draken, the highest point in all of Denerim. Every one of your companions will be here to help defend the city, except for Morgan, who fucks off for whatever reason, leaving you and everyone else behind. The party then splits into two, with you and your main squad going to fight the Archdemon and the other team defending the city. Here we get the final moments with our team. Each member will take their time to talk to you and give you a goodbye of some sort, a see you later space cowboy even. Long-term inventory and character management really comes in handy here because if you haven't been equipping and leveling your team, then you're in for some trouble. And if you didn't recruit anybody, then make it double. The B team, that's short for the inferior team, will be anyone not included your main party of 4. So you could potentially have like 6 homies out there wrecking shit, causing a ruckus. And giving all of them some kick-ass gear actually makes this the easier section when compared to the fight with the Archdemon. And I'll be honest, I've never won the Archdemon fight without utilizing the ballistas. They're the only thing I do when I make it to that section. And even with a powerful character like my maid usually is by the late game, the Archdemon still wrecks my shit. And the worst part was getting the various endings achievement. I had saved in a specific spot so I could just reload and then just kill the Archdemon 4 different times in like 2 hours or something like that. My friend Charles watched me do that, and all he had to say at the end when the achievement popped up was riveting. You know, I'm not saying it's impossible to fight without the ballistas. All I'm saying is I did not beat the bad Dragon Age player allegations. There are like 4 endings. Fucking god, I just fact checked this and there's forums being like, it depends on what you call an ending, and saying there are like 12 endings? What the fuck, dog? There are a few endings worth actually caring about. The first is the death of your warden. The reason wardens are needed to end Blight is because the game lore demands it to be so. Something to do with catching the soul of the demon, which is actually like a really old godlike being. But anyway, you kill the Archdemon, you catch the soul, and then you fucking die. In another ending, Alistair pricks the demon and promptly perishes. Another yet has you recruit Logain and make him do it to spare your own life. And the fourth is either you or Alistair get freaky with Morgan with the intention of the demon soul being transferred to Morgan's child. Those are the endings that pop the achievement. The other quote-unquote endings are for all the more minor shit, them being the real culmination of all the time you spent in the world of Thedas. In the final moments of the game, there's one last chance to see how your party members are doing, and even talk to them if you're alive. BioWare also brought back the Fallout-style end screen, revealing what happened to all the people that the Warden met, and how the Warden's decisions affected the broader world. Then the game ends. Dragon Age Origins was a classic for me as soon as I had a copy. When the trailer dropped, so did my fucking jaw. That shit was insane, and it started this craving for more. And over my years coming back to it, I never noticed things that actually made me dislike it. It felt like a properly made game meant to be enjoyed over many playthroughs, and in my case, over many years. The worst part to the game are almost nothing compared to all the best moments that activate my imagination even after having not played the game in years. Moments that made me feel powerful, like being the max level battle mage, one-shotting everything in my way on the highest difficulties. Or more somber story-related moments like Alistair's complete disbelief and actual anger if you kill his nephew in Redcliffe. Or moments like figuring out how to talk to Sten to open him up, or learning about Wynn's spirit friend. Moments like killing Flemeth because Morgan said so. I still have no idea if she was telling the truth, or if either one of those two characters were telling the truth about anything. There's also the shock and sadness when my PC died killing the Archdemon. Even after being told explicitly that that was going to happen, it still caught me off guard. You know, these characters are people I've attached myself to after many years, and it feels less like playing a game and more reliving some of the best moments with your friends. These moments matter to me more than whether or not it made me mad or what parts I could do without. The whole package is worth it to me. In short, this game fucking rocks. Absolutely one of my favorite games of all time. Maybe in the top 10.